when Lydia looked me in the eye and said, "You can't feed a family with integrity." Something inside me broke. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She just packed her things, kissed our son on the forehead, and walked out with another man. My boss. I didn't chase her. I couldn't. Because at that moment, I realized she wasn't just leaving me. She was taking the last piece of the man I used to be. For months, I tried to survive on pride and cold coffee until one night, while I was sleeping in my truck, a stranger knocked on my window and asked, "Are you Chase Morgan?" That's when my story really began. Rain hammered against the roof of my truck, a steady, merciless rhythm that drowned out the sound of my own breathing. I stared at the fog on the windshield, tracing circles on the glass until the condensation blurred them away. Somewhere in the distance, the Walmart security lights flickered, reflecting off puddles of dirty water. I'd been parked here for weeks, long enough for the cashier inside to stop looking at me with pity and start pretending I didn't exist. Nights were the worst. The silence had a weight to it, pressing down until I could feel it in my bones. I'd curl up inside the sleeping bag, pretending the engine's warmth was enough to keep the loneliness out. It never was. A sharp knock startled me. I jerked upright, half expecting the night guard again. Instead, a man stood outside, untouched by the rain, his black suit crisp, his posture calm. He didn't belong in this world of rust and exhaustion. He motioned for me to roll down the window. I hesitated, then did. His voice was steady, professional. "Mr. Chase Morgan?" My throat was dry. "Who's asking?" "I'm Lawrence Blackwell. I believe you're the heir of Samuel Hartman's estate." I laughed, hoarse, bitter. "Estate? I don't even have an address." He studied me for a long moment, rain dripping from the edge of his umbrella. "Then you might want to get one, because you've just inherited $47 million. For a second, I thought I'd misheard him. The words didn't make sense in my world anymore. Then he added, almost gently, "If you don't show up in Seattle within 72 hours, everything goes to Lydia Morgan." The name hit like a knife. I turned away, staring out at the rain pelting the glass. Of course it would be her. He slipped a silver card through the window. Blackwell and Partners, Seattle. The print gleamed under the flickering light. I stared at it for a long time, then whispered to no one. A fortune or a cruel joke? Guess I'll find out. The engine coughed to life. The wipers scraped against the storm as I pulled out of the lot, the wind howling around me like it already knew this was the start of something I wasn't ready for. The diner smelled of burnt coffee and old grease, the kind of place where truckers nursed exhaustion more than hunger. I sat across from Lawrence Blackwell, watching rain streak down the window behind him. Between us sat a stack of papers, thick, official, too real to ignore. A will, a death certificate, and a faded photograph of my father, Robert Morgan, standing beside a man I didn't recognize, Samuel Hartman. Lawrence adjusted his glasses, his voice calm but weighted. My father had saved Hartman's life 50 years ago, somewhere in a desert. 2 men stranded, one gave water, the other lived. Hartman built an empire after that. No wife, no kids, just guilt and fortune. Now, apparently, $47 million of it had my name on it. He said there were conditions, things I'd have to see in person in Seattle. He didn't explain what. I asked if this was some kind of scam. He only smiled and said, "Mr. Morgan, he knew where to find you. That alone should tell you something." The words clawed at me. For a moment, I wasn't sitting in a diner. I was back in the courtroom. The day Lydia looked me dead in the eye and told our son that his father loved principles more than people. Evan couldn't even look at me. That memory stung worse than any lie I'd heard since. Lawrence's tone broke through my thoughts. "If you refuse to go, the inheritance automatically passes to Lydia." My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. She'd taken my home, my family, my pride, and now, what? She gets my ghost too? Lawrence didn't flinch. "Or you can take back your life." Outside, thunder rolled across the flat Oklahoma sky. I left a few crumpled bills on the counter, stepped into the storm, and stared at my truck half buried in rain. The business card in my hand shimmered under the flashing neon light. Blackwell and Partners, Seattle. 3 days. I had nothing left to lose. I got in, turned the key, and headed north. The red glow of my taillights bled across the wet pavement like a faint trail of blood. The highway stretched endlessly through white fog and sleet. By the time I crossed into Kansas, the world had turned pale and silent. I stopped at a rest area for gas and found an old man selling coffee and gum from a dented metal cart. His jacket was military green, his eyes sharp but kind. "You look like a man driving from something, not to somewhere," he said. I smirked. Maybe both. I bought 2 coffees and handed him one. His name was Tom Harris, a former soldier, a wanderer who'd lost everything after Iraq. He spoke about the war like a bad dream that never woke up. Before I left, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a scuffed army watch. "Rich folks care about time," he said. "Out here, time cares about us." I took it, unsure why, but it felt like more than a gift. That night, the storm hit harder. Snow blanketed the road. My truck shuddered, then died halfway up a mountain pass. The heater coughed once and went silent. I tried restarting. Nothing. The cold came quick, crawling under my skin. Just when I thought I might pass out, headlights cut through the dark. A truck slowed beside mine, horn blaring. Tom climbed down, wrapped in that same army jacket, and pulled my door open. Guess I wasn't done helping people today. We rode out the storm in his cab, sipping bitter coffee that burned my throat. Somewhere between the wind and the engine's hum, he mentioned an old man who used to build homes for the homeless, called himself Hartman. Said he disappeared years ago. The name hit me like a jolt. Hartman, my supposed benefactor, my father's ghost of a debt. The dots began to connect, even if I didn't yet know the picture they were drawing. When morning came and the snow finally melted off the hood, Tom handed me the watch again and said, "If you ever rebuild something, make sure it's worth sleeping under." I nodded, started the engine, and watched the mountains shrink in the rearview mirror. The road ahead was long, but for the first time in years, it felt like it might actually lead somewhere. The hum of the engine mixed with the whisper of the wind, an unfamiliar sound that almost resembled hope. Seattle met me with cold rain that cut through my coat like it wanted to test how much more I could take. Lawrence led me through the gates of a gray stone mansion that looked as lonely as the man who'd once lived there. Inside, he turned on an old television. A man's face filled the screen, wrinkled, pale, and steady. "If you're watching this, Chase, then you've already lost everything." Good. That's where men discover what they're made of. Samuel Hartman spoke of a desert explosion in 1974 and of my father, Robert Morgan, who gave him his last bottle of water. Hartman lived. My father didn't. He said he built an empire from that mercy, and now it was my turn to give life back. Lawrence handed me the papers. I had 3 years to rebuild something called the Haven Project, help 100 homeless people find work and shelter, or the inheritance would go to Lydia. Her name hit me like cold steel. He believed only someone who's been broken can rebuild others. Lawrence said, I wanted to walk out, but curiosity burned where anger used to be. Lawrence placed a ring of rusted keys in my hand. The original Haven building still exists. South Seattle. You'll find your answers there. I looked out the rain-streaked window. Maybe this was never about the money. Maybe it was about finding who I really was. South Seattle smelled of wet iron and neglect. I found the brick building, Haven Project, the letters barely clinging to the wall. Inside was silence and rot. On a cracked wall someone had painted long ago. Dignity is not a gift, it's a job. A guard told me Hartman used to visit at night, as if waiting for someone. In a broken drawer I found a list of names. The first one stopped me cold, Harris. Thomas J. Tom, the drifter who had helped me on the road. Lawrence said quietly, maybe you were both meant to finish what he started. I called Tom. He laughed and said he was on his way. The next day he showed up, jacket soaked, same tired grin. We cleaned until sunset. Then a reporter appeared, smirking. The next morning, headlines screamed, "Disgraced engineer scams charity." And while I tried to fight that storm, Lydia filed a claim saying Hartman was insane when he wrote the will. That night, I stayed alone, wiping grime from the wall until words appeared beneath my hand. We don't save people with money. We save them with belief. Belief, the one thing I'd lost. Tom stepped from the shadows, holding 2 coffees. Then let's refill it. Partner. A gust of wind knocked down a photo. On the back, Hartman's handwriting read, "Every act of mercy is an inheritance." I stared at it, rain leaking through the roof, and for the first time, I felt the past breathing again. 2 weeks after restarting Haven, the air smelled of wet paint and old hope. Tom and I worked beside 6 people who had nowhere else to go. Veterans, a pregnant woman, a man fighting addiction. On the door, I rehung Samuel Hartman's words, "No one is too broken to rebuild." A reporter showed up with a smirk, asking if the disgraced engineer was trying to fix people now. I told her I was just trying to fix myself. We worked through the noise, though every sponsor refused to help. They called me a fraud, Lawrence said, then proved them wrong. That night, orange light rose over the rooftops. Haven was burning. Tom and I rushed into the smoke. He pulled 3 people out before a beam crashed down on him. I dragged him into the rain, blood streaking through the water. By morning, the papers accused me of arson. The police said they had no suspects, though a camera caught local teens setting the fire, one the son of a councilman. At the hospital, Tom gripped my hand. "You're fixing them. Chase, don't stop till you fix yourself." Then he told me Hartman had saved him decades ago. The circle I'd stepped into wasn't new. It had started long before me. That night, Lawrence called. Lydia had filed a lawsuit. The court froze my assets. I looked at the ruins glowing under rain and whispered, "She won't stop till I'm back on the street again." By morning, I was sitting across from Lawrence, the table buried in files. Lydia's lawsuit claimed I forged the will, that I was unfit to manage the estate. The same court that once took everything from me was ready to do it again, Lawrence said. Then this time, we make it right. Headlines screamed, "Engineer versus ex-wife, $47 million scandal." Donations stopped. Haven survived on scraps. Tom, still healing, showed up daily. "You've already built something bigger than money," he said. "No," I answered. "I built a target." While cleaning, I found an old hard drive full of videos, Samuel helping people, proof that Haven was real. In court, those clips played while Agnes, a woman I'd helped, stood and said I'd given her back her name. Lydia trembled across the aisle. "You'll lose, Chase. You always do." I told her, "Maybe, but this time, it matters." The final blow came when the new Haven cameras, installed by Samuel, revealed hundreds of hours of me rebuilding and helping. "The judge dismissed her claim," Lawrence whispered. "Your father would be proud." Outside, rain fell light and cold. Lydia stopped me on the steps. "You think this fixes everything?" "No," I said, "but it's a start." Back at Haven, Tom handed me his repaired watch. "So what now?" "Now we rebuild." 3 months after the trial, Haven stood again, new walls built from old ashes. The dining hall glowed with warm light as 40 people shared dinner. Men who once slept under bridges laughed beside women who'd spent winters in bus stations. I never knew the sound of laughter could feel like redemption. "We're not fixing the world," I told Tom. "Just the people who still want to live in it." The papers that once mocked me now printed headlines like "The Engineer Who Rebuilt Hope." Tech companies reached out, offering training programs for our residents. For the first time, the storm around my name began to calm. Then, one afternoon, Evan showed up at the door, clutching a notebook. "Mom told me to stay away," he said, "but I wanted to see for myself." I walked him through the workshops, the classrooms, the dorms glowing with quiet pride. When we stepped outside, I asked what he thought. He smiled. "I think you fix more than machines." "Dad." He decided to stay and volunteer. One rainy night, Lydia appeared at the gate, thin, soaked, eyes hollow. "Richard's gone. The bank took everything." I handed her my jacket, "Then start where everyone starts. Here." She wept, scrubbing floors beside the people she once ignored. Tom, now our manager, watched her and said, "Miracles happen when you stop expecting them." That night, I stood under the rain watching the Haven sign shine. The storm no longer felt cruel. It felt like cleansing. Maybe this is what rebuilding really means. Then the phone rang. Lawrence's voice was quiet. "Chase, there's one last thing Mr. Hartman left for you, a journal. You need to see it." The rain fell harder, mixing with the piano hum of the city, as if the sky itself was turning the page. The rain tapped softly against the tall windows of Blackwell and Partners as Lawrence placed a worn brown journal on the table. The name, Samuel Hartman, was pressed faintly into the leather. Inside, the first page read, "Robert Morgan gave me water and died for it. I vowed to make his sacrifice mean something. I built wealth, not meaning. Maybe his son can do better." My hands trembled as I turned the pages. Hartman had started Haven as an act of repentance, trying to repay a debt that could never truly be repaid. When the project collapsed, he lost faith and buried himself in money. His will wasn't a test. It was his final confession. "He wasn't testing me," I said quietly. "He was finishing what my father started." Lydia and Evan sat beside me, reading in silence. Lydia's voice broke as she whispered, "He gave you wealth to build souls, not walls." Those words became our foundation's creed. Together, we launched Haven for Women, a new branch led by Lydia to help single mothers find their footing. Lawrence hesitated before revealing another truth. For years, Samuel had secretly funded our family through a scholarship trust, money that paid for Evan's college. The man I'd thought a stranger had been watching over us all along. Days later, Evan's article, "My Father's Haven," filled the front page of the Seattle Times. Donations poured in. Haven became a national model for rebuilding lives. Then came Tom's final battle. The doctors said his heart was failing, but he only smiled. "I've already been saved once. That's enough." He died quietly in the dormitory he helped restore. At his funeral, hundreds gathered in the courtyard. Rain fell like a blessing. Lydia held Evan's hand. I stared up at the sky. "He saved you. You saved me. I'll keep saving others." After the crowd left, Lawrence handed me one last document. "Chase, you did it. Haven's helped 103 people. The estate is officially yours." I looked at the paper, then tore it in half. It was never mine to begin with. The sun broke through the clouds, washing the courtyard in light. For the first time, the world didn't feel heavy. It felt forgiven. 3 years passed. Haven Foundation had grown far beyond Seattle, its name lighting up cities across the country. That morning, a soft rain brushed against the bridge where I stood, watching the skyline wake beneath a shy sun. The city looked different now, cleaner, quieter, as if it, too, had been rebuilt, on my wrist. Tom's old watch ticked steadily, the sound blending with the hum of traffic below. Across the street, Lydia led a group of women through orientation, her voice clear and calm. Nearby, Evan, wearing a blue engineer's uniform, taught a class on design and rebuilding. On Haven's front wall, new steel letters gleamed. "We rebuild what life breaks." I'd completed every condition of the inheritance. Instead of keeping it, I signed the papers to transfer the last $47 million to the foundation. When a reporter asked why, I told her, the real inheritance was never the money. It was the purpose. Later that week, Lawrence arrived with an envelope. Inside was an old photograph from my father's funeral. In the far corner of the crowd stood Samuel Hartman, older, distant, but unmistakably there. On the back, in trembling handwriting, "To Robert Morgan, who saved me. To Chase Morgan, who saved others. The circle is complete." I stared at the photo for a long moment, feeling both gratitude and peace. Evan walked up, wrapping his arms around me. "You fixed people, Dad." That's the kind of engineer I want to be. Above us, a plane cut through the clouds, leaving a silver trail against the pale sky. I looked up and smiled. After divorce, I lost my home, but I found what it truly means. I stepped off the bridge, sunlight spilling across the wet pavement, as the piano of the city faded into quiet.